And I think we're starting with Chris's topic because we left you out in the midst of talking about our favorite different types of pornography last time. So, what do you got, Chris? What should we talk about?
Well, I think something that's been just kind of on my heart as of late is just kind of leading by example in the household, but also modeling behavior for my kids in the sense of trying to, and I'll be the first to say I'm suck at this and I'm got a long way to go, but trying to model behavior that my son can look at and say, I want to be like that when I grow up, and my daughter can look at and be like, I want to marry a man like that when I grow up. And so I constantly have to remind myself in my head when losing my patience with Leondi or whatever it is, just like, okay, don't argue about the little things, because like I want my kids to know how much I love her. Yeah. And I want them to know like she comes first in my life. And I want them, Kyle, to pursue his future wife the same way. Yeah. And I want Lindy to be pursued the same way. And so trying to model that for them, which again, I fail at miserably every day. But I think that's a big one for me, just trying to make sure that I can do that for them, but then also being able to recognize when I'm not and rectifying the situation. And having conversations with them and just being candid with them about it. And I can always, the most humbling, I guess, but also just heart-wrenching times is when like Leondi and I are frustrated. Like she'll say something, I say something, and then like we kind of like walk away, and then Lindy, my daughter, looks at me and goes, Dad, are you okay? And I'm like, I did not handle that the way I should have. So then I'm like, yes, I'm fine. Daddy lost his temper. I shouldn't have. But so, yeah, that's mine.
No, it is so hard. It's hard to like always model perfect behavior because we're so imperfect. And like you said, like it's hard every single day almost to always model perfect behavior. But I think a big part of it's like modeling how to handle things after you haven't handled them the right way. Like, I think that's a big lesson I learned from my dad. Like, yeah, he would lose his temper at times, but he would always come and apologize. And you're like, okay, he actually like knows how to ask for forgiveness and apologize for how he acted. And so I think that was a big thing for me that he just modeled, was like, we're all going to lose our temper. Right. We're never going to handle things perfectly every time. But like, can you come to your family, even your little kids, and ask their forgiveness when you don't handle things the right way? I think that's just modeling that behavior is huge, you know? Yeah. Because it's, I mean, so much of the time I just don't handle things perfectly, you know? I had a paramedic friend that told me, like, as the husband, you know, you're the head of the household, we should be the ship always sailing through like all the waves, like the chaos of a storm, and we're the ship like keeping everything like going one direction. And I almost never feel like that. I never feel like I'm like the calm one in the storm. I feel like that's Megan most of the time. Like she keeps the level head and I'm like the one bouncing off the walls. And I'm like, dang it, like I want to be that ship sailing the same direction. And I feel like that just almost is never true.
Well, and I feel like that's part of the stigma as well, to where it's like, the dad's always supposed to have his shit together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's the stigma of it, to where you're like, does it make me less of a man to like admit that I'm wrong? And it doesn't, obviously, but in the heat of the moment, it's hard sometimes to be like, that was stupid. And like to actually like vocalize that and say it outside and not just think it. And so I think that can be a part of it too, because there is that like stigma of it, to where it's like, well, I just got to keep pushing through these waves. I got to stay strong. I got to carry this load or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, but now how is that handled? And how can we, before pushing forward, address how it was handled and address it with the kids to be like, hey, that was not handled correctly. And I apologize. Will you forgive me? And then and then continuing to push forward.
Yeah. Well, I think we've discovered on this podcast that Chris and I are the more masculine of the four. And so I'm thinking that Dan and David are actually probably more that like that ship that keeps things going the right direction. Because I feel like we talk more about like losing our temper kind of things, which Megan always reminds me that anger is a secondary emotion, right? Like there's fear, or there's something underlying anger. Anger is not like a primary emotion. And I have to remember that, like, why am I getting angry about this is usually more important. So I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are, because I feel like you guys are a little more even keel maybe than Chris and myself.
I pretend to be even keel.
He goes into his room. And
I like to scream into pillows a lot. No, kind of like with your ship analogy, I've always tried to look at it personally and professionally like a duck on the water. The world could be falling apart. I try to keep in, that even keel, but like underneath the water, the legs are going a million miles an hour, and I'm awful at it. Kim and I will both tell you that we both have tempers, short fuses. So in that regards, I think we've done it, and we haven't even spoken about it. We've done a really decent job of when we do have arguments, and I've mentioned before, like most of our arguments are the small petty stuff. Like I can probably think in I think we've been together 14 or 15 years, like maybe two, like of just the big ones. And one of them was even like, Sophia was either really small or just not even around. So we'll generally handle that like away from the kids. But we're both like, we'll maintain it and hold it. But what's funny is like, I will start like fake fights just for fun, because I don't know if you guys have this. My kids will generally take my side if they think we're arguing. So they'll be like, "Daddy's right." I'm like, "That's right. Daddy's right." So I've learned to rally the troops behind me, whether it's like a real fight or not, which probably isn't the best thing to do. But it is fun. I'm not going to lie. But no, so I have an awful temper, and that's something that I've had to very consciously approach with the kids around, and just in general, because that's not a great quality to have in life. So I've kind of mentioned it before, like I probably take the duck in the water too far and I just kind of go quiet.
Yeah.
I've mentioned that's generally my thing. So trying to work on it, but it's one of those, like, do I fly off the handle or do I shut my mouth? And I generally lean towards shut my mouth. So luckily we don't fight that often, but when it happens, I think we've discussed I'm generally wrong most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think like what you said, Chris, I think a big part of our job in setting an example is not being perfect, but like showing what you do when you do mess up. And I think ownership is a huge piece of that. I think like one thing that I try to remind myself is like my job is not to be the perfect example. Like my job is to point my kids to Jesus, who is the perfect example. Right. Like I'm a sinner, I'm going to fail. Mm-hmm. And so I have a really hard time, I think, acknowledging when I fail and like apologizing for it, specifically going to my kids and saying like, "Hey, I flew off the handle. I shouldn't have shouted at you." We've talked about this before. But I just, I try to remember exactly like you said, okay, do I want my little girl to marry someone who is going to be flying off the handle and doesn't know how to control himself? Do I want my boys? I mean, there's one time I remember, I think it was Princeton. We'll say it's Princeton because it'll be funnier if that were the case. It may have been Erie though. But Kirsty said something and he goes, "Woman?" And where do you think you got that from? And when I say it, it's kind of joking, but I'm like, I probably shouldn't do that. It's kind of like the play fighting thing. Like, woman, whatever. So it's they pick up on these things, and we are setting an example. But yeah, I think the more we can point them to Christ, the better. And not that I do this particularly well. But it kind of goes into my topic. Well, I think all of our topics are pretty like linked up. but you're talking about the, you know, the ship or the dad who's supposed to have all of his stuff together, you know, and that pressure that you feel, ties into a lot of what I want to talk about. But I mean, I think a big part of like being a man is not having it all together, but just being able to take ownership and being able to recognize when you don't have it all together, and the fact that that's just called life, and navigating that and figuring out how to position yourself with community and people and relationships and the things that you need to be successful. Because we don't have it all together. We're broken, and that's just, you know, that's just a part of life.
Well, I think Aaron hit the nail on the head as far as like the anger being a secondary emotion, like, because you say that, and I mean, so often that anger comes, like you said, fear, or like for us, a lot of times it's even just like we're overstimulated.
Yeah.
We get home from work, kids get home from school, they're full of energy, we're exhausted, and it's just like constant. And so that overstimulation, and then like, then that's how, then you respond quickly out of that. And then you have to be like, okay, because it's pretty quick that I feel like you start to realize like, yeah, could I handle that better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I think it's very human to, it's a defense mechanism. For me, a lot of times anger is a defense mechanism, and I'd rather be angry than feel like I'm out of control, or feel like I don't know what I'm doing, or feeling like I'm failing. You know, watching my kid do something, trigger something in me oftentimes because I'm embarrassed, or I feel like I've, you know, failed to train my children properly. And so boom, I get angry. And that's a easier feeling to feel than to acknowledge like, oh, I'm actually disappointed in myself. Oh, you know, I'm embarrassed. I'm, you know, these other things.
Yeah, I think the overstimulation is a good point, that because I don't feel like I ever could pinpoint like, gosh, I'm feeling overstimulated right now. It's always I'm reacting with anger as a result of that. Megan's pretty good about knowing, like, she's like, I am feeling overstimulated. Let's turn down this music. Let's, you know, have a little bit more peace and quiet. And I'm kind of like oblivious to all the things going on around me until all of a sudden like something happens and I'm losing my mind over it, you know. But like, I mean, the ER is overstimulating, so I kind of feel like I should be good at that, but it's that, you know, probably that constant, you're home now and the kids are yelling, something's not going right, your wife's had a rough day dealing with the kids, trying to get dinner together, and that's still all overstimulating. And it's easier, I think, to show our anger in front of our family than it is at work. Like, you keep it together at work, but the people we're most comfortable showing our emotions around are the ones that receive the brunt of the uncontrolled emotions that we keep in check all day. I mean, because I see that with my kids, like, even they'll show more emotion with Megan than they even do with me. If I'm home with them all day, they'll be pretty even keel, and then Megan comes home and they're losing their minds. I'm like, they weren't crying and screaming all day. I'm like, what's going on? But they're like a little more comfortable showing their emotion in front of her. And so I think that's, you know, that's a problem that we all deal with, but you're more comfortable with your family, you know, so you don't keep yourself in check as much, I think.
Well, I think it's even like the control part too, right? So I think like at work, we don't control the chaos. We just deal with the chaos. Whereas at home, I feel like it's more of like I should be in control of this chaos, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like when you do feel it spiraling out of control, quote unquote, like, then that's when you're like, respond out of that anger, because then it's like, well, this shouldn't be happening, like, because this is my house and this is like my family and everything. So I think it's like a comfort thing, and then control issue and all that kind of stuff too, because I mean, there's no control at work. I mean, you just roll with the punches, kind of. I mean, especially in the ER, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Jeez, yeah.
You know, I mean, that's a great point, though, because like the ER by its very nature is going to be chaos, but you don't want your house to be that way.
Yeah.
And so when it is, and it's going to be, especially when you have kids, there's going to be tons of chaos. I think we do react a lot more strongly. Like, I think back to like the things in the last few years that have made me the most angry, and it's been chaos in the home. Like, we had a incident with some extended family where there was borderline violence in the house, and I was not home for it. And this is a, you know, family member we've now kind of distanced ourselves from, who caused it. And Ruth was like a baby at the time, wasn't even in the same room when this incident happened. But even now, like, I'm still like angry about it. And I think that's the point that you brought up, is like, it's chaos in my house that I should be able to control. And so I feel like that brings up that emotion in you. And whether it's something minor or something big, like it's your household. So you feel like I should be able to keep this together. And in this moment, I'm not bringing order to the chaos. And so that makes you react emotionally to it. But I think that's a good point. It's something I never really thought about before in that context. I feel like this is a good opportunity just to bring up a quote that And now that duty falls to you. That victory is within your reach. It is your voices, your song that will create the golden Han-moon. This is from K-pop Demon Hunters.
I didn't know where it was from.
The Han-moon.
And then I heard that all afternoon. So I'm like, yep, I know where we're going.
So, I mean, just think about that a little.
You waited 20 minutes. Okay, that's pretty good.
I can't control that.
That's out of my control. Yeah.
Don't even know where to go from there.
We are hunters, voices strong. Your faults and fears must never be seen. So, nice. I mean, do with that what you will.
Well, that would be a great time to switch topics, I guess.
Right.
We can't switch topics yet. We're gonna keep rolling on this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
What other things do you guys do to try to model behavior for your kids?
Well, I think modeling and what we say are two different things, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess this more falls into the category of things that I remind my kids of verbally, but how to treat women is a big one right now. So my boys are 5, 3, and 1. So Princeton likes to hit everyone, including his mom and his sister. And so, sometimes the conversation like, dude, you can't just hit people. Other times like, we don't hit ladies. So like, that's a big one. I want my boys to be gentlemen, and so, 5 is still kind of young, but he's starting to understand. So that's something I don't have a lot of experience with it yet, but it's definitely top of mind of like, here's how we treat ladies. And then I think too, just for brothers, how they stick up for each other, how they treat one another. I remind Beckham all the time, Princeton's your only big brother, so don't antagonize him. Don't do that, so just stuff like that, that I hope that sticks with them. And I think as they get older, they'll be more tactical with that. But
yeah, I mean, some of it is like that. Do as I say, not as I do. You try to model the best behavior, but some of it is just teaching them that stuff in the moment, because you're not hitting your wife, but they are. So it's, right. you're modeling the right behavior by default.
Yeah.
But it's about stepping in that moment when they have done that and explaining why we don't do this. One thing that I learned growing up that I thought my parents did really well was like not making fun of somebody that was struggling with something that's easy for you, because you're the 5-year-old, they're the 3-year-old. So my 5-year-old Ruth does a lot of things that the 3-year-old really struggles with, and so trying to remind her like, hey, she's 3, she's still learning these motor skills that you've developed. Like, let's not make fun of her for doing this. Let's help her do this. And so I try to take those opportunities to be like even today, they have these little golf clubs they're playing with, and Kira misses the ball all the time, and Ruth started laughing. I'm like, no, we don't laugh at her. Let's show her how to hold the stick and how to hit the ball. And like, we don't want to laugh to antagonize her. Let's help her and teach her how to do this. So some of it's, things that we've mastered as adults just by default, and teaching our children how to kind of master those same things.
That's really good. Yeah. I think, a big part of it is just looking for those lessons to teach, like, okay, this is a moment to provide a little bit of instruction and what we're doing today. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. They started to do the like, ha ha thing, which I really don't like, because that's like the epitome of like making fun of somebody or laughing at their misfortune. And so I tried to catch that early and be like, no, we don't say ha ha. Like we're not finding joy in someone else's misfortune or somebody falling down or something like that. We need to make sure they're okay. And, so some of that, just kind of comes with time, but it's lessons that they need to learn when they're young.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's good. I like that.
There was a kind of taking it back to the woman.
Yeah.
There was a viral video a couple months ago. I'm sure it's been cycling around for a while. Somebody had like a Ring video cam within their house, and mom had asked the kid, looked like he was probably 9, 10 years old, to do something. And he ended up spouting off to her like something like calm down. And the dad just happened to catch it. And it was one of those, he goes, what'd you just tell your mom? And what's interesting is, you know, you guys have mentioned like here's why we don't. And this particular dad, I'm not saying right, wrong, you know, anywhere in between, but I'm curious your thoughts. What he essentially ended up doing was he called him back. He goes, did you say this to your mom? Yeah. We don't speak to mom like that. And he ended up doing like over 100 push-ups. He was like, cool, give me 10 push-ups. Kid did them. He goes, all right, how are your arms feeling? Arms are fine. Do 10 more. And so instead of like the, you know, hey, we don't do that, and this is why, it was we don't do this, and here's the punishment to get you there. Right, wrong, or indifferent, because I don't know what that family is. I don't know what the parenting style is. Sure. Who knows if that's been an ongoing problem. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on something like that. You're not beating the kid, but you're certainly proving a point within. There is some physicality to it, even if it's just a
push-up.
Yeah, push-ups.
Christy started doing that with Princeton. Like, she, you know, for whatever. Because I think I've told you guys before, we spank him and like he doesn't even flinch. Like I'll spank him and I'm like, dude, I kind of feel bad. That was a little hard. And he's so Kirsty's thing now is like, use your strength for good. Give me push-ups. And same thing, like if he's beating up on his brother, being too rough or whatever. Because I think it's, 1, it is a bit of a punishment. 2, it's teaching him discipline. Yeah. 3, it's like we want him to learn to exercise and take care of himself. And then, you know, 4, it's like if he's got energy that's, you know, he's 5, he's got testosterone running through his veins. Like sometimes you just need to get it out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So find a good use for it.
Yeah, I kind of do like that. Like, it's a method to get the energy out. Maybe if you make them tired, they'll actually start to reconsider their behavior. And it's weird for me with just 2 girls because we don't spank. Every now and then, in super rare circumstances, if they're actively being violent and they're not listening, I'll slap their hand, and that does not go over very well with either of them because they assume that I'm beating them. Sure. You know, they go and run to Megan. Daddy's hitting me. I'm like, I promise, I just slapped her hand. She was actively harming her sister, and so we don't do spanking or anything, and like, so we do a lot of like breaks in their room and stuff like that, but. You talk about like consequences for different actions. And so we try to take lying more seriously. So Ruth now is at that age where she knows she can lie to avoid a consequence. Right. So we have a camera in their playroom. And so sometimes I'll be in here working out. One of them starts screaming and yelling. Clearly they're harming each other. And I'm like, Ruth, did you hit your sister? No. I'm like, well, let's take a quick look at the camera. Yeah. And she'll watch it with me, and she's smacking her sister right in the face. I'm like, Ruth, you lied to me, so now you're going to have a more severe consequence than us just talking about this and you going and apologizing to your sister. So that's a behavior I'm trying to catch early, like, hey, you guys are going to fight and stuff like that, but your consequences are going to be much harsher if you're lying about your behavior, to try to instill that integrity in them and stuff too. So, I mean, we do kind of levels of discipline, but I mean, it's hard. I grew up getting spanked. Yeah. And so sometimes when their behavior's really bad, it's like, is a break in their room enough? Right now it kind of is, but as they get older, you know, I don't know what that's going to morph into. But
Chris, you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I'm right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of what Aaron was saying, just as far as the lying part is probably what we're pushing on the most right now, is just you want mom and dad in your corner. Yeah. So don't lie to us. Like, we need the truth. Mm-hmm. And the consequences are always going to be 10 times worse if you lie about it than if you just come clean about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a process, but I mean, they're both just at that age right now. And being that I have 2 at, what are they, 8 and 6 now, they just get in those times where they just constantly go at each other. And it's just like, have to literally just get to the point where you're like, all right, you go over there, just do your own thing for a little bit.
But they never do their own thing for a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that's why, like, today talking about Kyle dressing up as the old man, because like he's still like today before coming over here, he's walking around the house just squinting, looking for his glasses. Like, I can't see, where are my glasses? And I'm like, I don't know, dude, I didn't have them. But like, don't walk around like that because you're gonna walk into the wall. And like, it's just, but that's, yeah, I mean, that's his. Everybody needs to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And he fits that mold. And so it's just, he's still 6. So right now it's still like cute, right?
Yeah, right.
But I'm like, at some point, you can't be like that.
Yeah.
How do you guys model arguments with your spouse in front of the kids? I feel like that's something that it's usually like in the back of my mind. If we're having an argument or a discussion or whatever you want to call it, we're not yelling at each other, but we're having a disagreement of some kind and we're trying to talk through it while raising children simultaneously, which is a huge pain in the ass. They're interrupting you. They need something every 5 seconds. You're trying to have an important discussion because you don't want it to linger. And so I try to like, personally just try to keep it calm. Like they should probably hear us argue and have disagreements. Like it's a part of life. But trying to model it, not getting angry, not shouting at each other, trying to hear each other's side of it. But it's hard just because your kids are needing things when you're trying to have a discussion. It's not like before kids where you could sit down and have a discussion about something. You know, you're dealing with multiple things simultaneously usually. And I think I just try to keep it calm and like, this is how you disagree with someone and this is how you solve it. But I mean, that's a constant thing I'm trying to improve. But
yeah, I love that idea that that's an opportunity to model some proper and correct behavior, because I think growing up, my parents never just had an argument or heated conversation in front of us ever. And I'm sure, you know, at times behind closed doors, but, and I think for me, that kind of has fed into my dislike for confrontation and avoiding confrontation. Mm-hmm. And so that's something like for me and Kirsty and our kids, I don't know that it's necessarily intentional, but I don't shy away from it. I'm like, no, let's, you know, it's a lot of times it's in the car or whatever. Mm-hmm. And like, I mean, what are you going to do? You got to just, and so rather than be like, okay, we'll talk about this when we get home. It's like, yeah, no, I disagree. And here's why. But I think to your point, if you can disassociate yourself, like, and keep your emotions out of it. Because again, like with anger being a secondary emotion, like if you start getting angry, being able to stop and reflect, okay, why am I getting angry? You know, why is this argument? Why am I taking it personally? Why am I getting defensive? Why is my heart rate increasing? Why am I getting louder? Okay, that's not the masculine thing to do. That's not the leader thing to do. Let me take a breath and try to remove myself from the situation and think about this as a third party. And I think if you can do that, then that's really helpful for your kids to see that, even if maybe it's not even resolved in that car ride, you know, but getting to see, like you said, people dialogue, having opposing opinions, and maybe coming to some type of agreement or maybe not. But I think like, being able to ask questions, being able to express yourself. Well, here's how I feel. Here's why I think this way, is really, really healthy and good for them to see. I think especially for my boys, I don't think Ari has any problem expressing how she feels, you know, but I know for me as a guy, it's like, that's pretty uncomfortable. It's not something usually, or even saying like, hey, that hurt my feelings when you said that, you know, that's hard to say.
We don't have feelings.
Exactly. Yeah. But a lot of times that's how disagreements start, right? Or that's why you're taking something personally. Or that's why because your feelings are hurt. It's like, you don't want to tell your wife, hey, you hurt my feelings. Yeah. But if your boys can see that dad's like, hey, it kind of hurt my feelings, or I was offended a little bit when you said this. And then, oh, well, that's not what I meant. Why did you? Oh, okay. Well, I misunderstood. Yeah. Okay. Problem solved. Or maybe it's something bigger, right? But I think, being able to model that for your kids is huge.
No, that's a great point. I think that's why a lot of my conflicts will start, is because my feelings are hurt. But you don't want to say that as a man. You're like, that's the last thing you would say. You want to come up with some other reason why the argument started. But a lot of times it's like, you know, I just kind of felt disrespected or unappreciated by the way you said something. Because our wives are great at communicating exactly why they were bothered by something. But I think as men, we really struggle with that. The same paramedic I talked about earlier, we would be on scenes and have disagreements with the firefighters. And like all men, they respond with anger. We responded with anger. And he'd be like, hey, man, did I hurt your feelings with that? And then that that would totally shut them down. Because I mean, what's your reaction if someone's like,
Right.
"Oh, sorry, man, did that hurt your feelings?" They'd be like, "No, it's not. No, it's not. You're getting really emotional, man." But
firefighter.
and he would use that like all the time. He'd be like, "Oh man, did I hurt your feelings? That like I'm so sorry," and then it would like shut it down because no guy wants to be like, "Yeah, you hurt." No, they're like, "Oh no, it's fine, whatever."
That's amazing.
But
genius.
it's like very insightful because
It
it's
is.
so true. Because that's usually what it is.
Yeah.
When you're responding with anger,
Wow.
this strong emotion. I mean, at its core, a lot of times that's what it is.
Man.
And if you're honest about it, your wife knows you better than anybody and can hit those buttons better than anybody.
Yeah.
And I think in those times you're like, woman, when you're playing around,
Yeah.
like it's a fun poke, but I think sometimes in the heat of a moment, because I know I do it unintentionally, I think it's just as easy for our wives to do it unintentionally just to get some rise of emotion out of you. Hey, you're being a little too passive. You're running away from me, hiding in the fireplace.
We probably get that more than them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But for us, that's
for us,
definitely a thing.
I think Kim will hit those buttons sometimes, not to be mean, but to
Engage.
yes, exactly. It's a mechanism to get me involved more than the
That makes a lot
I
of
don't
sense.
care right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you've been married for a long period of time, we all know what the buttons are,
Right.
Subconsciously or otherwise. Maybe you didn't intentionally push it, but you know what it is.
Yeah.
And when you're in a conflict and you're not thinking the best, it's probably easy. That's an easy button to push, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this will rile them up.
Yeah.
This will get them to take it seriously. Us versus them, or them versus us in the
Yeah.
argument.
For sure. So I'm in the modeling piece. I can't think of anything that I've done to be active, within the displaying it. I genuinely don't. I would need to ask him. Like, am I off with this? Am I doing anything here?
Maybe doing it subconsciously.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
I have picked up on little things, like the rallying the kids to my side. Like, it's really easy to be like, oh, mommy doesn't like me. She doesn't love daddy right now. And they'll kind of hit on that. Like, why don't you love daddy right now? So, I have to be very selective with that. And sometimes the kids just do it. I don't want them to feel like they have to pick sides because nothing's that serious that we're having conversations in front of them. But I'll be honest, I'll probably be slightly more conscious of it the next time it happens to see what I do. I don't really have an answer for this one.
Yeah.
I feel like most of Leondi's and my frustrations, disagreements, obviously 99% of the time are petty crap, but for us, it always comes when we're neglecting each other. When we're not as in sync as we would like to be. When we're both running 100 miles an hour in opposite directions, whether it's work, whether it's sports, whether it's whatever extracurriculars may be, school stuff. And then it's just like, she'll say one thing, I'll say one thing, and then it just escalates. And I think one thing that we probably could be better at is doing a better job of trying to resolve it with the kids and showing them some conflict resolution. And we have done it some, but a lot of times it gets to one of those points where we're just like, let's deal with this when the kids are down.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to.
Right. And so like, then the kids will go down, and then like, then we'll have the conversation, or at some point thereafter we'll have the conversation. And that's usually what it results in, is it's usually just like, this is what happened. And then both, like, I always feel like, well, that was stupid to just get upset about something like that.
Yeah.
But then it's like, I think this is the reason why. Like, we haven't done a date night in X amount of weeks, however long it is, like sometimes months. And it's like, if we aren't taking that time up for each other because we're so busy and everything else, then that's where we just end up clashing because we're just so out of sync with each other.
Yeah.
Well, modeling prioritization of your marriage relationship's a good model of behavior too. Like, hey, you guys are going to be with the babysitter tonight. Mom and dad are going to go out. That's good for them to see too, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's your number one relationship.
Yeah.
And really the kids probably should be secondary to that. And we all know that doesn't happen as often as it should, but you know, that's a relationship that probably needs to be really good in order to raise the kids well enough. And, I have just one final thought on this topic before we wrap it, but one behavior that I grew up having modeled for me was like having a very low threshold for like the day to be ruined. Like Megan and I've talked about this, like we have something fun planned as a family. We go out and something really small happens. Somebody pisses off my parents in traffic or whatever it is. And like, oh, the whole day's ruined. We're going to be mad about this. We can't enjoy the fun thing we were going to do because of something small. And I learned that growing up. And so, especially when we were newlyweds, I had such a low threshold. If we're going on a vacation or just a weekend together, like something small would happen. And I'd be like, oh, this is totally pointless. We're spending all this money for nothing. Like, it's just ruined. And since having kids, and hopefully Megan would back me up on this, I feel like I've gotten much better at like, don't let a small thing derail, you know, the fun thing that you're doing, you know, but it was a behavior I feel like I learned growing up. And so it was something I had to overcome. And I feel like I've had some success in that area. Like even today, we didn't get the pavilion, right? We wanted, I could have been super mad about that. But I'm like, but I was actually able to think about, for Kira's birthday. And, you know, we had to set up at a picnic table and I could have like been mad about that, but I think I spent 2 seconds being like, it doesn't matter. We're going to have a fun day anyway. Listen, we're not even going to remember that.
If we'd have been in that pavilion, Kirsty would not have gotten her pile of acorns being next to that tree.
It all worked out.
We got so much vitamin D and that pavilion would have blocked all of the vitamin D.
Exactly.
Do you guys have any final thoughts before we wrap this topic?
No.
Well, for our 4 or 5 listeners, guys, let us know if you like the shorter format. We're going to try to release weekly with a different topic and just make it a little bit shorter and more listenable. And we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.